Weavile is a fan favorite in the Pokemon franchise, and of course, people want to know just how good it is in Pokemon Go. Well, up ahead is a clip from my livestream SwagTips where I cover just that. So you got Tyranitar on the top, you got Weavile here, you got the mythic Pokemon Darkrai that's not currently in the game, sandwiched between them. But yeah, so Tyranitar is leading in CP. If you look at their HPs, Tyranitar is leading there too. Attack stat, Tyranitar is leading, and defense stat, Tyranitar is leading. So where are people getting the idea that Weavile could even begin to compete with Tyranitar? Well, the main thing with Tyranitar holding it back is that it has the charge move Crunch. The charge move Foul Play is much better than Crunch. Dark Pulse, kind of like on the level of Crunch, arguably better, arguably worse, depending on how you look at it. But our boy Weavile here, the Edgelord Extraordinaire, can kind of make up for its poor attack stat because it has access to that better charge move Foul Play. And the whole idea of Weavile outpacing Tyranitar in the first place, even before it came out in the game, came from the Dps Tdo Rankings. Alright, so we got the Dps Tdo spreadsheet, and right now it's sorted by DPS. And you can see that Weavile is, ahead of Tyranitar by a lot. And actually a lot of things are ahead of Tyranitar, which kind of doesn't make sense because Tyranitar has been known as the king of dark types. But in some metrics, Houndoom, Absol, Sharpedo even, beat out Tyranitar ever so slightly, or maybe in a big way, in DPS. And in this particular spreadsheet, given the metrics that it bases its assessment off of, Weavile is actually pretty far ahead of Tyranitar. It's almost one whole DPS ahead, and in Pokemon Go terms, one whole DPS is pretty darn significant. The main thing kind of holding back Weavile in compared to Tyranitar is that TDO. Can't make up for the bulkiness, but there's always useful applications for glass cannons in Pokemon Go. I mean, just look at Gengar. Right now, Gengar is like the king of the Cresselia raid and is considered a glass cannon still, so glass cannons definitely do shine in a lot of ways. But what I ended up finding in the Cresselia raid was that Weavile's higher DPS really wasn't showing true. So looking at the Cresselia raid, the one that we currently have, we got Weavile here and we got Tyranitar here. Now of course, Tyranitar more tanky than Weavile. The main reason why Tyranitar has the higher TDO in this raid is because it can actually withstand Moonblast fairly well, where Weavile goes down pretty quick to that. If you remove Moonblast from the equation, ends up creeping a bit closer to Tyranitar's performance, in TDO. But you'll see that the DPS really isn't all that high. When you look at the spreadsheet, you're like, whoa, one whole DPS higher, like, Weavile's insane. But now we're looking at it in practice in the Cresselia raid, and we're like, okay, Weavile, that's not 1 DPS, it's like 0.1 maybe DPS. Yeah, Weavile, if you want to use it over a Tyranitar in your party, all things else being equal, unless you like going for style or some variety, you want something new to play with, it's not really going to be benefiting you. And to highlight this idea even further, because it does look like it's slightly better in this particular scenario here, so how much could that actually play out? I want to take you guys to Math City to really break it down. Just how, I guess, bad or like not good of an advantage that Weavile has in this particular raid scenario. And then going from there, I can apply this to other raids pretty quickly. Starting out, we got Weavile, and its DPS in the raid is like 15.68 DPS. And then we got Tyranitar, and its DPS is like 15.5. And that's based off that graph I just showed you on Cresselia. So how much does this like DPS actually like matter? Like what's the time advantage that we're getting from this 0.18 more DPS? Well, a way that you can find this out is by taking the raid boss HP, and then you subtract it by the other guy. So yeah, so you're dividing the HP, so the 100% damage that you can deal by the damage per second, to get the idea of like how long it takes you to beat that raid with that DPS, and then subtracting it from the competition here, and then it was like 9.26 or 28. So the advantage of Weavile, you'd think, is 9.26 seconds. But there is a small problem with this particular metric, and that is considering that it's a single Weavile and a single Tyranitar, like undying, fighting the raid boss until the raid boss completely goes down. Well, in order to do that, you'd probably need like roughly 800 seconds, right? And you don't have 800 seconds, you got like 300 seconds, and that's why you kind of bring friends with you. You don't fight these raid bosses alone, right? So you'd have to kind of whittle this down a bit. Well, I think reasonably you can assume that you might be doing like 20% of the whole damage to the raid boss, so then you just multiply the 9.26 by 0.2 to get that 20% in 1.85 seconds. So then that would be the influence of you using a whole party of Weaviles instead of using a whole party of Tyranitars, the true advantage that you'd experience or that you'd contribute to the raid, assuming you did at least 20% damage to the raid boss. So if you're in a much larger raiding party, or if the people you're playing with are using like higher DPS Pokemon, which is literally just Gengar, right? Then that number might be lower. And if it's like less players, then the number might be higher. Like if you're doing a trio or something, then you're going to be doing more % damage. But this 9.26, your personal influence, gets whittled down to like 1.85 seconds. So that's like roughly 2 seconds. And that's the difference between using Weavile and Tyranitar. So the extra little DPS there really translating into maybe 2 seconds. And if you're actually experiencing that as a player, kind of questionable. There's also a little debate going on about death lag. So there's like when your Pokemon faints and you bring in a new Pokemon, there's a little time delay. Go Battle Sim has it as like 1 second. I think Pokebattler has it as something a little bit longer, or maybe it's also 1 second. And there have been some reports that suggest that it could be as low as a ½ second. And depending on what that metric is, Tyranitar could actually end up equaling or beating out Weavile's time advantage here because it having less deaths in the battles, so less death lag, which means it's trucking a little bit further, a little bit faster. I mean, what are we expecting out of 0.18 DPS to begin with, right? But this does give us an interesting kind of starting point here, because before, you know, we were comparing it to just the raw DPS and then the total raid boss HP. And I told you it'd probably take like 800 seconds for this DPS to really kind of equate that. Well, you might remember 800 seconds kind of time to win. That sounds like Pokebattler kind of speak right there. To kind of make this go a little bit quicker, to do a little like snapshot fast maths as far as the true advantage of using a Weavile over a Tyranitar, or any Pokemon, in fact, you could use Pokebattler's time to win, subtract the time to win between the two Pokemon that you're looking at, and then to get an idea of, you know, what the true influence would be, you can multiply it by 0.2, which is 20% damage, which is like kind of like a reasonable amount of damage you can expect to contribute yourself personally to a raid, and then get a better idea of what the time difference is there. And if the time difference is only like a couple seconds, then you're probably not really going to feel it IRL, you know, actually playing the game. Death lag might come in and skew those numbers a little bit, you know, more in favor to the high TDO Pokemon. But it's a quick way to kind of like just trudge through a whole bunch of Pokemon and see, you know, which raids Weavile is actually getting a huge advantage over Tyranitar in. So, gonna go through that Pokebattler with you guys. So we know that in Cresselia, the Weavile versus Tyranitar, definitely in Tyranitar's favor because same DPS, Tyranitar's more tanky. Let's see what the Axis looks like. So the time to win is 407 seconds, more or less. And for Weavile, we got 433. Neutral weather, best friendship going on. Tyranitar is just putting Weavile's face in the mud here. That's like kind of embarrassing for Weavile. Alright, so we can check that one off the list. I swear, I didn't go into this intending it to be a Weavile slam live stream. I want to find the raids where Weavile's good. Deoxys definitely is not one of them. Yeah, okay, so Deoxys normal type. Stick to what you know. Stick to Tyranitar. Weavile's definitely a cool alternative option though. Raichu, tier 3 raid. Alright, and then since this is tier 3, no friendship. Because we solo tier 3 raid bosses, right? And the time to win here is a little bit more flat. We don't have to put like fancy math to it because we are doing 100% damage. And yeah, so Tyranitar's got 127.9 seconds for the time to win. And Weavile has 126.8. That is a 1 second difference. You know, Weavile's doing it 1 second faster. You have like, what, 180 seconds to beat the raid. And Tyranitar is doing it more tanky. You know, you only need 3 Tyranitars where you need 4 Weaviles. Kind of another strike against Weavile here. It is, once again, like a little baby bit faster, but how much does that really play out IRL? It doesn't look like it's playing out too well. There's got to be one raid where Weavile is like, my DPS matters. Alola Marowak. This is a tier 4 raid, so we got friends again. Oh, geez, looks like another win for Tyranitar, but this is with Stone Edge. So we're just doing dark type stuff here. 370.9. So that is a little bit better for Weavile. 370.9 versus the 365. And then you're probably doing 50% TDO, so then you're taking that, you know, like 5-second advantage, cutting it in half, and it's a 2.5-second advantage. So yeah, I don't know. Once again, Weavile definitely not looking like it's having a crazy advantage over Tyranitar. And then if you decide to, I don't know, get weird and not use Double Dark and use the superior Dark Rock for Tyranitar here for this particular raid matchup, well then Tyranitar just very clearly wins. And the reason why is that, you know, Crunch, not that good of a charge move. Stone Edge, quite a good charge move. So kudos to Tyranitar having a little extra there. Alright, so we are seeing a time advantage in the Mewtwo raid. 632 on the Tyranitar, but we got 618 on the Weavile. So that translates into 14 seconds, right? And 14 seconds, kind of significant if you think about it. Because if you're doing Mewtwo with only 2 people, or 3 people, yeah, you have to do it with 3 people. Mewtwo's a trio. So it ends up being like a 5-ish, you know, 4.62 advantage. I'd say this is like a pseudo win for Weavile. Definitely got a lot more types you have to look out for, like Flamethrower kind of really hurts it. Ice Beam, yeah, look at Ice Beam. Weavile's like doing much better than Tyranitar against the Ice Beam moveset. 23-second advantage here, and then the power, the TDO effectively, is more on par with Tyranitar. So I think like Ice Beam Mewtwo is definitely a raid boss where using Weavile has a little bit more respect than it would otherwise. I think we found one. Bam, here it is. Ice Beam Mewtwo. good job, Weavile. Let's see how it's doing in Lugia. So against Lugia, we're expecting Weavile to show off its DPS a little bit more because it's got those cool ice type attacks. Weavile also has Avalanche, and Avalanche is one of the most powerful charge moves in the game. Actually, it's like in the class of like the most powerful ones that aren't like special community day moves. So if there is a, you know, fight for, you know, Weavile to show off its DPS, this is one such fight to do it. Yeah, so you got it really outclassed in Tyranitar in speed here. In fact, Tyranitar doing its rock attacks are going to be a bit better in this fight. But yeah, so we got 954 versus 909, so 45. And then I think for this fight, you're probably quadding it for the most part. So that's like a 10-11 second advantage. So that's actually pretty significant to use a Feint Attack Avalanche Weavile in this fight, opposed to using a double rock Tyranitar. And then if you want to get like nitty gritty with it, double dark even slower. So yeah, 995. Wow, it's like 40 seconds slower, which gives, you know, Weavile a little bit more leg in that race. And if you want to compare it double dark, Weavile loses a lot of time too once you start doing double dark. So yeah, Avalanche, really big selling point here. And then using Feint Attack with that, also a big selling point. Yeah, it loses a lot of DPS with the Ice Shard as well. So, you know, double dark, double ice. It looks like Weavile's like true advantages are going to show in its you know, mixed move pool moveset. You know, thinking about that, let's check out Giratina. Alright, so we see the mixed moveset coming in again, and we see the time advantage coming in over Tyranitar once again. So overall, I'd say as a pure dark type Pokemon, very few advantages to using a Weavile over a Tyranitar. If you have full Tyranitar squads, then investing in a Weavile would be more like, you know, you want some variety to your squad, or maybe you're into Poke Drafts. Yeah, so people are into Poke Drafts. Weavile, definitely an invaluable member to your team. You can't put a price on the power of Weavile for Poke Drafts because you're kind of like forced to use alternative Pokemon for that. But overall, if you want to do dark type things fast, then you might want to look at Gengar more, because ghost type damage parallels dark type damage in a really big way. Actually, kind of interesting Poke fact, you got the dark type Supreme Darkrai, not in the game yet, mythic Pokemon. It's actually like a counterpart to Cresselia, so maybe we'll see it soon. Cresselia is the dream Pokemon, where Darkrai is like the nightmare Pokemon, so maybe we'll get a taste of Darkrai in the near future. But yeah, Darkrai is going to be like the best dark type, more or less. More DPS than Tyranitar. I think a bit less TDO, but it's like in such a way where you may as well just use Darkrai. Well, interesting Poke fact about Darkrai is that it's got Dark Pulse in its move pool, but it also has Shadow Ball. But for doing like psychic type countering things, the Shadow Ball moveset, even though it doesn't have a stab bonus, is technically better than the Dark Pulse moveset. So yeah, ghost type damage, almost the same exact coverage. And if you're not using Foul Play, you know, the superior dark type move, well, I guess even Shadow Ball, even without a stab bonus, will be a better move than your dark type charge moves could be. So pretty swag. But yeah, so Weavile's got like another thing going for it though, that you're all very well aware of, and that's its swag ice type damage. So let's see how it compares to other ice types in the raiding arena. Ice type Supreme, people were invested in Mewtwo, and I told you guys back then you may as well hold out for Gen 4, right around the corner. Really powerful ice types in Gen 4, and yeah, Weavile is one such all-powerful ice type Pokemon. You know, Ice Shard, Avalanche, and you can see in the time to win, beating out Mewtwo by quite a bit. You know, we got 390 seconds versus the 432 seconds, so that's like 40 seconds. Rayquaza, pretty easy duo, so you can just like lop that in half. That's a 20-second advantage on Weavile as an ice type, so really swag there for the Weavile. Now of course we know that there are other ice type monsters coming down the line in the future. We got Glaceon. It was in the teaser promo for Gen 4, but we still haven't seen the evolutions yet, so where's Glaceon? But Glaceon, very similar to Weavile in performance, and then we also have the ice type god Mamoswine coming eventually, which, you know, might put Weavile in its place a little bit here, but until that time comes, Weavile has the ice type crown. That was a clip from my live stream SwagTips. SwagTips streams every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time on the Twitch channel SwagTips. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see more like it, well then make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. And if you have any questions on this content, or you just want to tell me that Tyranitar sucks and Weavile's the best, well comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you're waiting on my gym defense content being updated, it's still a little slow going. We've made some pretty big breakthroughs over the past week, and I expect to have at least something up this weekend, so stay tuned for that.